and I'm the founder of Tranquil Birth. I'm a hypnobirthing practitioner, and I'm also a birth trauma resolution practitioner. So I work both antenatally but also postnatally, looking at supporting people's birth experiences really on both sides of that kind of birth space. So I have 2 children, so I've got 2 much older children now, 8 and 5, which is quite scary because it doesn't feel that long ago that I was pregnant and expecting my first baby. And it's my own experiences as well as the work I do around that that's really helped kind of inform the practice I have at Tranquil Birth. So it's a real amalgamation of the kind of wisdom and the stories and then the tools and techniques of hypnobirthing and antenatal education together. So today I thought I'd talk a little bit about why we prepare for birth and what a nourishing birth preparation can look like. And some of the things that often come up when we think about birth preparation, people say, well, birth never goes to plan, so why make a plan, why prepare? So I think something to look at in that is what good preparation is about. And for me, good preparation is about considering what all your options are. Because there is a sort of element to birth where we can prepare. We can't predict, but we can prepare. And if we feel informed, if we know what our choices are, if we know what our options are, and then if we have really good, practical, tangible tools to ground us through the physical experience, we're able to stay connected, but also look after our emotional experience. So what is robust planning? Well, for me, and the way I would approach this, is it's really about looking at what tools and techniques you can use to emotionally and physically support yourselves through any birth experience. So it's knowing certain grounding techniques that are going to help you stay relaxed and calm. So in hypnobirthing we use breathing techniques, we also use visualization, relaxations, and they're all really useful for creating a safety for your emotional well-being, but also having something physical to help you through the physical sensations of birth. Not just for birthing women, because we know we're going to feel that process of birth, but also for our partners in the room, because actually they are really experiencing all the emotions that go through that experience as well, and having tools for them to ground them, to stay connected to that experience is just as important, because what we're looking at is the entry into family life. So everyone in that space matters. And as well as having those tools, those kind of emotionally grounding tools, another aspect for good, thorough preparation is really being informed. Information on actually not just what the options are, that's really important, but what's actually happening in birth. What is happening in birth? What are the hormones that are flowing? How can we support that process? What's the physiology? What's actually happening in the body? Because what we look at a lot in kind of hypnobirthing and a tranquil birth preparation is reducing the sense of fear. It's starting to really build your confidence, and one of the ways we can build confidence is by feeling informed. When we don't tend to be scared of the things we understand. It's the sense of the unknown that scares us. And so kind of going into birth, if we don't have any plan or we haven't had that preparation, can really lead us into that space of unsettling unknown, where anything that happens can cause us to be quite afraid, quite triggering. But if we've got tools to ground us, and then we've got information, not just on what's happening, but what our options are. And that can be external options. It might be about your choices in terms of pain relief, it might be about your choices in terms of where you birth. But it's also about your rights and who you are. Because information is only as practical and as useful as it is meaningful for you. So one set of information might mean something to one person, but actually it might mean something totally different to someone else. And one of the things we see a lot when we work with people with trauma is that there isn't a set thing that happens that creates an experience that someone might say is a difficult or traumatic experience. It's not what happens, it's how we feel about it. So within all that information, within knowing your rights and having those grounding tools, what's really important and a really good thorough preparation is exploring what that means for you. How would you use them? What actually feels good for you? What's important? So that might be considering some of your emotional needs. For some of us, it's really important to feel like we're heard. For others, it's really important to feel like we're really safe, physically safe, emotionally safe. So it's also about connecting who we are and what's important to us, and then having that information and those tools as well that we can make work for us, because everyone's birth experience is unique. And I think it's really important to also look at the importance of this, the importance of feeling relaxed, and the importance of feeling good through your experience. So there's a really practical reason for this. If we are afraid, we produce adrenaline and cortisols. So if we have tools that can keep us relaxed and calm, we actually produce a really vital hormone for that, oxytocin. So when that oxytocin is flowing, it's supporting that process. But hormones are like a symphony, so it's not just supporting that process, it's supporting the bit that comes after it too. And that's why preparation is really key, because whilst up until probably this point in our lives, everything can feel quite divided, quite segmented. We can take our box of work out, we can put it back. We can take our friendship groups out, we can put them back. Well, the journey through pregnancy, birth, and then into parenthood is actually really interlinked. How you feel through pregnancy is going to affect how you feel going into birth, and how you come out of birth is going to affect what that start of parenting life feels like for you. So really having that sense of flow all the way through all the stages really aids our sense of emotional well-being, not just for us, but for our families as well. So having confidence going into something reduces our sense of fear. Having tools to reduce that fear helps us through the physical process into birth. And that's all part of a good preparation. So being informed, having practical tools, but also understanding how they're going to work for you, because it's that aspect of it that's really key in creating your own experience, your experience, unique from anyone else's. So you could have a wonderful birth at home in a birthing pool, and that could be a beautiful, wonderful birth experience for you. You could equally have a beautiful, wonderful birth experience having an unplanned cesarean, because you felt informed, you were able to stay calm, and you were able to navigate that change because you'd made a plan A, you'd made a plan B, you'd made a plan C and a plan D, and you understood what you'd be able to bring to each of these plans, knowing what was available to you. And really what all this underpins, with all the kind of work that I particularly do, is looking at your emotional needs through this. Because ultimately the reason we do all this is to come through it to have our life with our family. And your sense of well-being, your emotional health, as a parent, as a mother, as a father, as a family together, is the journey that you're going to go through. So if you're preparing thoroughly for birth, you can prepare for the birth itself, but as I mentioned before, it's all interwoven, it's all linked. So this is also a really good stage to consider what postnatal life is going to look like, because it's that same sense of preparation that drives you through. So things like, and I know Alison talked a little bit earlier about the kind of importance of good nutrition and planning, how we're going to have those meals, but this is a great time to consider that. When you get home with a baby and life's new, whether it be your first or second or third, there's always a change with a new baby in our world. How are we going to navigate that? How are we going to look after ourselves physically? What can we do to help ourselves? Who's going to be on hand to help us? And these are all things that we can start and should start thinking about now. And that's part of a thorough preparation. Perhaps it's getting an Ocado order in. Maybe it's getting additional help with a cleaner. Maybe it's calling in friends and family and saying, would you be able to come and visit us for the first week and bring a meal, so we've got a meal. Maybe it's getting the slow cooker out and batch cooking and getting the stuff in the freezer. But all those things, they sound a little bit boring and non-glamorous, but they are actually what makes that transition much easier. And with that, we're actually helping our emotional transition. This is a massive adjustment. We talk a lot about the matrescence now, this period of change from pregnancy, actually up until 7 years after our babies are born. Massive neurological change happening, massive physical changes. In fact, the matrescence, the rewiring of the brain, is the largest rewiring of the brain that ever happens. It's bigger than adolescence. So what's happening for you as you sit right now is incredible, what's going on in the background. And when women say, I don't feel the same since I had my baby, That's actually, they're not the same. Neurologically, they're totally rewired, and physically, they're different. So we are going through this massive period of adjustment. And it's not to be, underestimated how we can try and support ourselves. And the more we do to support ourselves, the better. So looking after our emotional needs, thinking about the connection we have with our partners or those around us, how we're going to work together, what we're each going to need, how we're going to navigate a slightly different routine if one of us is up and having less sleep, and what's the other one going to be doing? How can they support one person maybe feeling more sleep deprived, going through this massive physical adjustment? And this is the time to work that out now, because when you have a new baby, you are just go, 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 and Alex is going to be talking a little bit later about his sort of fatherhood experience, but you are just go, go, go. So trying to figure that stuff out, trying to meet your emotional needs in the midst of all that is really challenging. So having time now to prepare gives you a chance to really think about some of those needs you have and what you could do, and then what practical things you can do as well, just easy bits of help. And one of the things that I think is really important in that connection isn't just the connection with each other, but trying to widen that out to the community. That's what today is about, and that's why I brought today together, that sense of nourishment in the community. Who's there to help you? Perhaps it's a postnatal doula that can come and just give you some relief. Perhaps it's someone who delivers meals. Perhaps it's a nanny who can come and support. And I know some of those things feel, out of bounds and non-accessible, but actually there are other things we can do. Perhaps it's a parent or a friend or a neighbour or somebody from the group. There are some great groups here and great services who come to support that. But what they give us is a bit of emotional space to actually find our way with this bigger thing called parenting. Now I say mine are 8 and 5 now, and it feels like yesterday that I was giving birth. One, I think that says how important birth is. You never forget that birth experience, so preparing and making it as nourishing as possible is important. But also, that time that goes by, that's my son, that time that goes by so quickly, it's like a whirlwind. And when you stop to catch yourself, you start to think, is that how I wanted it to be? And of course, we have every aspect, every possibility to change it as we go through. But if we take time now to consider what do we want and what can we do at this stage to put in those things to support us, then we make that adjustment, we make that amazing journey, hopefully more joyous as well. So that's your emotional health. But also postnatally, there's something massive going on in the body, the physical healing. So you have a 9-inch wound in your uterus once your placenta leaves, and that's massive. That's the size of a dinner plate, that's pretty amazing. And the uterus is contracting back down, and we know that it's taken 9 to 10 months to get to the stage where you've birthed, and after you've birthed, you need to give yourself time to nourish and recover. So what adjustments are you going to be able to make in your life, and who's going to support you? But also, what are you going to do for yourself physically? Thinking about that now, of course this will change and adapt, but thinking about it now gives you that little bit of kind of scope ahead of yourself. So thinking about the fact that you might not need to just get your body back, because your body's not gone anywhere, it's just adapted with you. So there's sort of real strain to exercise and get moving 6 weeks after we give birth. There'll be a real pressure when we've got a new baby. Our bodies have gone through this massive adjustment. So consider maybe giving yourself some time, giving yourself some nourishing time quietly in those first couple of months to get to know your baby, to settle into life as a family without too much external pressure. Alison talked about kind of pulling up the drawbridge and creating that nest. Well, that's really important. But what's really important is you consider that and how you're going to do that now in that pregnancy stage. Because once you're in it, it's much harder to navigate. And for those who've had children, they probably give a kind of agreeing nod, I imagine, to the fact that once your kid's there and your children are there, it's harder to plan this stuff. So planning it in pregnancy is part of the current preparation. And then the other thing is to consider, what if things haven't gone the way you hoped? What if your birth has been more difficult or more challenging? Who's going to be around to support that as you recover? We know that 25% of births which are difficult, only 25% actually lead to PTSD. So there's 75% of difficult or traumatic experiences are naturally processed. So what we know about that is that there is an environment that supports processing, a natural processing of difficult experiences, and a natural processing of adjustment. And that environment is one where your emotional needs are met, you feel safe, you feel secure, you have somebody to talk to, you have someone to help nourish you, and someone to connect to. So there are some of the basic emotional needs we have. And if you think now, through that pregnancy journey, who's going to be able to meet those needs for you? And just consider it now. Maybe it's about sending a text and going, would you pop round once a week to see me once I've had a baby? Because you might just need someone to talk to about certain aspects of it. It might be talking to your partner and figuring out how you're going to keep that connection going when you're both busy and you're adjusting and perhaps working and you've got more to do physically in the house. How are you going to keep that really important connection between you and the people you live with? Because it's that connection that actually helps support us developing and processing any experience that we've had. And if you have had a difficult birth experience, it's also good to know that you can come through that. You know, a difficult birth experience doesn't have to be just that. It is something that is processable, and it's something that you can overcome the kind of emotional aspect of that. But considering all these things through pregnancy is massively important. And if you are looking at the ways in which you can prepare, I'm going to give you a brief talk about hypnobirthing because that's what I also use. So hypnobirthing really gives you tools and techniques that you can, one, reduce fear, but also that you can start to feel empowered. So we look at what's going on in the subconscious mind. So if I say to you now the word birth, and some of you may have gone through birth and some of you may be preparing for first birth, what's the first thought, image, idea that comes into your mind? Michelle? Pain, yeah. Anyone else think pain? A little bit, not really. What other ideas? What pictures do you have in your mind? Blood? Any screaming? You've got all the really good ones. And how does that make you feel? You don't really want to do it, no, because it doesn't feel exciting. And actually, we're designed, our brains and our minds are designed to protect us from things like that. You know, that's not an exciting concept to go into. So what we use at hypnobirthing and what we do is look at what we're currently holding in our minds around birth. Now, some of those things might not serve us, and some of them might. There might be some really good ideas we have about how wonderful and joyous it's going to feel, that sense of relief and excitement when we see our baby. But those ideas serve us. So what we want to do is release the ones that don't serve us and really develop the inner resources that do serve us. And we do that through hypnosis, so working in the subconscious mind, because a lot of these ideas are held beyond that kind of conscious level that we use every day, that we're using right now. It's only when we think about it and go a bit deeper. And actually, if we go deeper still, there might be ideas we've picked up in childhood or images we've seen. And the reason we do that is because when we go into birth, our minds are scanning our brains to figure out what this is. And they go in, and if they find something that's not great, they trigger one of two responses. There is the stress response, the sympathetic nervous response, or the relaxation response. And you can only be in one or the other. And if your stress response is triggered, you start to produce stress hormones, cortisol, adrenaline. And what that does is directly inhibit the flow of oxytocin. And it's oxytocin that we want. So there's a really practical reason to stay relaxed and calm. But what it also does is give you somewhere to place yourself through birth. So these tools also give you a connection and a grounding for yourself through the physical journey, through the emotional journey, for you both, actually, for you and your birth partner in that space. And that isn't to be underestimated, because the calmer we feel, the more relaxed we feel, the more readily we're able to adapt, make decisions, make choices if we need to, from a space of feeling informed and calm rather than a space of panic and fear. So as well as helping the physical process, it also helps the emotional process too. And plus, I think it's a really lovely way of going through pregnancy. You know, who doesn't want to relax every night and have some really nice tools to breathe with and enjoy? Because it is an experience, and the more we can enjoy that and enjoy the connection of that, the better. You know, and it isn't something that we have to necessarily fear. It can be an incredible, amazing, empowering experience. And it can be something that we feel prepared for, that we know what our options are, that we know whatever happens, we can be okay. And that's really empowering and powerful, I think, as we travel through a massive change in our lives. So if you do want to talk a little bit more to me, I will be here today, and I will be outside and kind of hanging around and generally running around, probably sticking up signs and moving around and all those things too. But does anyone have any sort of questions or thoughts or anything at the moment?
A little bit, because obviously you know I went through difficult births, and hypnobirthing itself, I had no idea of what that was at the time, and I felt really unprepared for birth as well, and I ended up having an emergency C-section. But at the time, because I hadn't considered what the worst would be, I was quite young as well, so I had a really lovely picture of what birth would be. How does hypnobirthing, or how can hypnobirthing, does it consider the possibility of it when it goes wrong, or does it go to the plan as well, and how can that help?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so that's something I should say is that, so the way I would approach hypnobirthing or any kind of birth preparation is having tools for any situation. So this isn't about creating a birth, because there's no such thing as a hypnobirth. There is just tools and techniques that you take into birth. But it is about, and good preparation is about understanding how you'd use those tools and techniques in every situation. So one of the ways that I particularly work is to really think about, well, if you've got this toolkit, how are you going to use it when you're at home? How are you going to use it when you're transferring into hospital? How are you going to use it if you go into the birth centre? How are you going to use it if you go into an emergency cesarean, planned, unplanned, or an emergency situation? Because each one of those birth spaces is really valid, and your experience in each one of those birth spaces is really valid. So still feeling like you've got tools to stay calm, connected and informed is vital in supporting that experience. So you can make decisions, you can ask for the things that still feel important to you, and you can feel preserved in that, because it is that sense of speed sometimes and that sense of change which we know can exasperate that fear and that stress, and then coming out of that is then having two sets of adjustment to having a baby and an adjustment to the change in our expectations. So thorough planning is also about considering what all your options are going to be, and actually how you're going to support yourself, empower yourself to the best you can through every space, for you and the people in that birth space for you, so that you're all feeling good about it. Because it lasts with everybody. Yeah.
So it's not the perfect birth, it's about having the tools to deal with the birth experience,
absolutely.
no matter what.
And there is no such thing as a perfect birth. You know, there is a birth that feels empowering, and a birth that feels connected and feels hopefully good for you, that you've enjoyed, and you think, yes, I would be up for doing that again. And that's the game. And if things change and don't go the way you hoped, it's about feeling safe enough, grounded enough to go, do you know what, that wasn't the way I expected it to be, but I'm okay, and I'm emotionally okay, and I know that I've got the tools to support my physical recovery now as well. And all that is really good to consider at this stage. And it's good to kind of keep considering. I'm not saying that this is the only time, but this is a really useful time to think about it, because this is the time where you can start to put a lot of that into action and start planting the seeds. So thank you so much. I am going to leave those of you who are pregnant with a small tool to take into your birth with you. And this is a breathing we use if you'd like to, you don't have to. This is a breathing technique we use if you've done any yoga or meditation, it's very similar. We use this to ground the body, also to get it into that relaxation response, so you reduce the adrenaline, and then you can produce more oxytocin. And it's the oxytocin that produces the beta endorphins and all the other good stuff as well. So it just helps you, it just helps. So this breathing technique is one we use in hypnobirthing and in Tranquil Birth, and it's a deep inhale in through the nose, and really importantly, a longer, slower exhale out through the mouth. And it's the exhale being longer, which is where this breath becomes supportive. So we could do 5 rounds together. Please join in. You don't have to look at me if you don't want to. And we're going to do a count of inhale for 3 and then exhale for 5. And I just want you to notice how that feels for you. So you can just shake out